In this video, I'll give you my final picks for UFC Vegas 88. We're going to look at DraftKings strategy, lineup construction, and I have some free money for you, so make sure you watch until the end. You can call me Kunath. Let's make some money this week. As always, we'll start with the value plays. These are going to be your underdogs that you need in your DraftKings lineups to make everything work. If you're looking for more of a full card breakdown where we get into these fights in greater detail, you can check the video from earlier in the week. That is the predictions video. It's going to be linked in the description and in a pinned comment. The first underdog and value play consideration is Marcin Tybura. They're doing him a service by keeping this photo here because we know half of this hair is gone. Now, if you watch the predictions video, you would know that I prefer Tuivasa in this fight. I like him to win by knockout, but there's something that you don't know. One of the reasons it took so long to get the predictions video out was because I couldn't choose. I looked at the fight over and over again. I rewrote my breakdown for it 3 times with a different winner each time. I liked Tybura to get it done, then I liked Tuivasa, then I liked Tybura, and then I landed on Tuivasa again. Because Marcin Tybura can get it done here by ensuring that he's fighting his kind of fight. If they're not brawling, if he's not getting backed up against the fence too much, if he initiates the clinch, if he's digging that teep to the body, he's going to be able to slow Tuivasa down. We talked about this in the predictions video. Tuivasa is never in better shape. It's constantly worse shape. And once again, he comes into this fight looking like the last pick in gym class. And for that reason, I really like Marcin Tybura if this fight goes beyond the second round. It could be a good live betting opportunity for you to take Tybura in the second round after, say, Tuivasa has success early, lands some big shots. Tybura seems rocked. So given that Tuivasa has a 10-minute window and this is a 25-minute fight, if you want to put Marcin Tybura in your player pool, have some exposure to him, I would recommend being overweight to the field. And historically, he's not lighting up the stat sheet by any means. You see 64 points in a 3-round decision there, 59 points in a 3-round decision there. You see breaking 100 points when he's getting these knockouts, but then you get here, you got a decision here, 90 points, 81 points, 87 points. With 5 rounds to work, there's a better chance that he does break that 100 points, and I don't think that Tuivasa will hang around for that much longer after round 3. So a finish is on the table, a knockdown is on the table, submissions are on the table, takedowns are on the table. All these things are going to score you a lot of points. You could be confident going into this fight knowing that at least one of these guys will break 95 points, so you're going to want them in your player pool this week. Again, I would recommend being overweight to Tybura versus the field. Our next value play is another fighter that I don't see getting it done this week in Chelsea Chandler at 7,800. I know a lot of people like her this week. Big size advantage, probably a grappling advantage on the mat. This notion though that she trains with the Diaz brothers and stuff like that, just stop, all right? Stop it. Maybe she does a little bit, but it's not like she is their everyday training partner getting hard rounds in with Nick and Nate Diaz. Like, she's not doing that. Maybe she's training with them here and there, but she's not getting hard daily rounds in with these guys, and I don't even think that would be a very good look for her, especially fighting somebody like Josiane Nunes. If you grew up playing football, you've probably heard the following: you practice how you play. If that's true, you want to do your best to make sure that you are training as close to whoever it is that you're fighting. So 6 foot tall, 200-pound Nate Diaz is not really going to help you all that much when you're fighting 5'2" Josiane Nunes. But enough of that. Why should she be in your value play consideration? Well, there are a few reasons. Number one is you're playing an ownership game. Now, I do expect her to get a decent amount of ownership because of how popular of an underdog she is. I know this is a card where people think favorites are going to dominate. I'm normally not in that camp, but I do think that favorites are going to look very good this week. So if she does get it done, she's one of maybe 2 or 3 underdogs that wins, she probably shows up on the optimal lineup. I say that because she's got a high scoring ceiling given her fighting style. We saw Romana Pascal end up on top of Josiane Nunes multiple times. So if Chelsea Chandler, a bigger grappler, somebody who's more athletic, stronger than Romana Pascal, is able to get on top, she's probably able to stay there for a while. Land some ground and pound, look for a submission potentially, but just do good work, rack up the control time, get the 5 points for the takedown, maybe find a finish there. And if she's having success with her grappling at one point in the fight, I expect that to be happening throughout the rest of the fight. If she gets a takedown early, she's probably going to be able to get one late. And the other reason why you would want to put her in your value play consideration is because if she isn't super popular on DraftKings, especially in your single entry stuff, then you're going to get good leverage by having her in your lineup. If she's coming in south of 20% owned, then yeah, it's a good spot. You're playing the ownership game, which is basically everything that you're trying to do with DraftKings MMA. You want to capture that ceiling, of course, but ownership is what's going to get you there. The next value play we're looking at, and this is hitting the midpoint because I only got 6 for you this week. It's a 13 fight card, 6 value plays, not bad. But those first 2 I don't have a lot of confidence in. This one, however, This is different. Christian Rodriguez is super talented, and I know a lot of people want to discredit the wins because he missed weight. I totally get that. I think the same people that are discrediting the wins because of the weight misses are the same people that thought it was smart to put money on Raul Rosas Jr. or Cameron Simon. You're a fool. But I get it. I get it. When I'm on the wrong side of somebody who missed weight, I'm always like, well, it's because they missed weight. So I totally understand. But in these fights that he's winning, he's dominating the grappling exchanges. He dominated Cameron Simon, dominated Raul Rosas Jr., submitted Weems in the first round. Even when you look at his UFC debut against Jonathan Pierce, who was winning fights at the UFC level. This was a short notice debut, up a weight class at the time. He was fighting at bantamweight. He's up at featherweight now, but at the time that was a step up for him. If you just look at the numbers, he got 2 takedowns, a reversal. He spent some time in a dominant position, 30 points in a decision loss at 6,900. He was a perfect punt that night. And one thing the fight log is not going to show you is that he had a guillotine that was pretty tight. It was almost as tight as it could be. But Jonathan Pierce didn't tap because he was making all the right decisions after getting caught with this guillotine. Good tripod, making sure that he was taking off a little bit of pressure, creating space, and also just having the heart and the patience and being calm enough to fight out of that position, because it's not something that you could just get out of right away. You need to work from one step to the next. Now, Isaac Dulgarian might be able to do that, but at the same time, Isaac Dulgarian has not faced a whole lot of adversity in the cage, really none. And there are times where fighters do get caught with something. Fighters that have just been running through everybody, making it look easy, they get caught with something and they just panic. Dulgarian's game is predicated on athleticism, strength, dominance. So let's say C-Rod's defending a takedown attempt with a guillotine. Let's say he does it early while they're still dry sometime in the first round because that shot is coming. Dulgarian gets caught and his first instinct is just to pop his head out. What if the head don't pop? What if he can't just explode out of it? What if he realizes, oh, it's getting dark, this is tight? These things happen. Just look at Paul Craig and Magomed Ankalaev when he tapped him out in the last second of the fight. It was perfect technique, and I'm sure the choke was as tight as a triangle could be, but he could have waited, right? He could have waited 2 seconds. Why didn't he? He panicked, and I think that somebody with only 6 professional fights fighting in the UFC against the guy who's 3-1 in the UFC and only lost against a highly talented prospect on short notice debut up a weight class. Sizable gap in level of competition, sizable gap in overall experience, and I think that Christian Rodriguez down at 7,700 being the more experienced fighter, somebody who's gritty, somebody who's got better striking, somebody who's got better submissions, definitely going to be in value play consideration this week. And he's also going to be good leverage because there are going to be a ton of people on Isaac Dulgarian, rightfully so. You're going to want to have exposure to Dulgarian because he is a beast, and if he wins, it's probably in the first round. He gets a takedown or 2, lands a bunch of strikes, ends up scoring 107, 108 DraftKings points. Yes, that's good. That's a good thing. But you can't discount the upside from Christian Rodriguez, the experience, and the new challenge that he brings to Isaac Dulgarian that he just hasn't seen before. 6-0. We've seen Christian Rodriguez take 2 undefeated records in his last 2 fights. He has a chance to do it again this week. Give me C-Rod by submission. One of the sneakier value plays this week at 7,400 is Danny Silva, because what if Josh Culibao just doesn't show up? What if Josh Culibao just can't match the output of Danny Silva? What if Danny Silva just goes to war with him and Josh Culibao just doesn't throw enough strikes and ends up losing a decision? So we have Danny Silva landing 180 significant strikes, winning a decision, scoring well at 7,400. Very, very possible. I don't expect him to be a popular click this week, but I do think that he goes the distance. I think it'll be a close competitive fight either way, and judges get things right, what, 60% of the time? So if a fight's going to be competitive and it's going to go the distance, you're always in it. And while I like Josh Culibao to win this fight, I do think that Danny Silva is very much in this fight, very live to win this fight. I don't think he knocks Culibao out, but I think he just puts numbers on him. I think he stays in his face. I think he makes it a dogfight, and as long as he's not getting knocked out, I think that's going to be pretty close, pretty competitive, and down at 7,400, you're probably going to want some exposure, at least be overweight to the field. Now, the next value play is Chad Anheliger. He's the first fight of the night, so he could get you off on the right foot. I think more people will get here than, say, Danny Silva, for example, but I think that he wins this fight. Grigoriou hasn't fought the highest level of competition. He's going to have to defend takedowns. He's going to have to deal with funky, awkward movement from Chad Anheliger, and he's going to be forced to fight a hard 3 rounds, which he's not particularly used to. So I think that Chad Anheliger presents a lot of unique challenges for him this week, and I don't know if he gets by him. With that said, I don't know if he's going to light up the stat sheet at all because he doesn't throw a ton of strikes. Yes, he's going to get takedowns, but even then, he's not going to be trying to look for a whole lot of ground and pound. He's going to win a decision here, and he probably scores around 75 to 85 DraftKings points, which probably is not enough to get you there, but somebody you're going to want in value play consideration because those 85 points may be worth a lot if he's one of 2 underdogs that win this week. And the final value play, if you're willing to stick your hand in the chum bucket, would be Mitch Ramirez. Mitch Ramirez is not very technically sound. He's at a huge experience disadvantage. disadvantage, a massive grappling disadvantage. He's making his UFC debut. He's stepping in on short notice, so we don't even have a full camp to work with here. But he's a big, strong, powerful guy who's fighting Thiago Moisés, who doesn't really offer too much on the feet. Mitch Ramirez could go out there, let it all hang out, nothing to lose, land a hard 1-2 down the middle, wobble Moisés right away. I think where he loses the fight is if he hurts Moisés, tries to pounce on him, and ends up getting taken down. I don't think that Mitch Ramirez wants any of those problems, but sometimes you just get sucked into it. It happens. You land a big shot, the guy's wobbled, he starts retreating, so you want to close that distance quickly. Some guys just start running toward their opponent. But that's when you see some of these better grapplers like a Mateusz Gamrot, for example. Everybody rocks Mateusz Gamrot, and then they close distance and end up getting taken down. The same thing can happen here. So it's up to Mitch Ramirez to stay patient, mind his P's and Q's, let the finish come to him, and try his best to keep the feet. If he wins, it's going to be by knockout. It's probably going to be in the first round, second round at the latest, and down at 6,900, he would absolutely break the slate with a win this week. He's not going to be a popular pick. He's the second cheapest fighter on the slate, so he makes everything else possible for you when you're building these lineups, and he's going to win early if he does. Perfect tournament play this week, somebody you want in value play consideration. Even if you're at like 15% ownership, if you run multiple lineups, you would still be finding yourself pretty overweight to the field, and I think that's important for Mitch Ramirez this week because you never know. He could have that debut magic, but with that, we have the value plays out of the way so we can get into building some lineups. Before we do, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment 2 underdogs who you think are going to win this week, because if you get them right, we'll shout you out next week. The sharp people from last week in the comment section, 2 people had MVP and Lins. That was Magomed and King Crow. Gabriel Martinez goes with Curtis Blades and Dustin Poirier. I tried to tell you all about Dustin Poirier, and let me just set the record straight. If you watch any other channel and they told you that Dustin Poirier wasn't going to win, don't hold it against them. Just understand they don't know what they're looking at. So thorough Joe Burrow, who I assume is the real Joe Burrow, as well as KP and Donnie. I'm going to go with KP because I don't know what you want me to do with that. They all went with Lins and Curtis Blades. Curtis Blades flip-flopped a little bit, so we'll allow it. Austin Levy says, all right, bug guy, give me Dustin Poirier and Felipe Lins. I like it. Duvie and Ace Boogie wanted MVP and Wood, and they got it. Joe Egg said, give me MVP, give me Dustin Poirier. Nice work. And then somebody who was smarter than all of you in the comments and smarter than me in the comments, apparently, GD says, give me Lins, MVP, Dustin Poirier. You're welcome. Look at the confidence. If you want to be shouted out in next week's video, make sure you drop the comments in the comment section. 2 underdogs that win, make sure they win. Now we can get into building your lineups for this week. So for your cash games, we're not going to want to stack the main event because it's not like last week. We know that it's not going to go the distance, so the scoring floor is not as high as you would typically like to stack a fight. So there are a few ways that you can approach this. You can kind of go double punt and get 2 really cheap pieces. That way you can open up the salary to try to get some of these more expensive plays that you're more confident in. So if you want to do that, for example, you can grab Mitch Ramirez. You could even grab Natan Levy, who probably goes the distance. And with 9,000 left over, you can grab somebody like Bryan Battle, Jafel Filho. You've got 9,400, so you can come right up here to Kennedy and Nzechukwu, maybe Gerald Meerschaert. I'm fine with this. Now, I will make another cash game lineup. I was going to save this for the official DFS strategy guide that's on KUNATH'sMMA.com. I'll show you what that looks like because some of you have never seen it before. I'll show you what last week's looked like, but this part will be on the DFS strategy guide this week, but I'll give you a taste for free for the low. The sneaky stack of the week for your cash games is going to be Joshua Culibao and Danny Silva. Then you can start building your cash game lineup around that. Both these guys are going to throw a lot of strikes, land a lot of strikes. The activity is going to stay high from start to finish, and this gives you the safest scoring combination out of any other fight on the card, and it still gives you that safety of stacking a fight. Then you can come down here and you can grab somebody again like a Natan Levy, for example, just so you have that cheap punt play, and then basically you just follow the same path that you followed last time if you feel like these guys are going to get it done for you. GM3 right there. We could take them out. We could put Kennedy and Nzechukwu in there. I'm fine with it. That's what your cash game lineup can look like this week, and I'll show you what the cash game core looks like on the DFS strategy guide. So here is last week's DFS strategy guide for UFC 299. So we start always with the cash game plays of the week. I give you 3, and we assumed that you stacked the main event last week. So Asu Almabayev, obviously he smashed. Michel Pereira smashed and got the submission like we were talking about on the channel. And I see other people saying, oh, we talked about the submission angle. Not that you don't talk about, you talk about every angle, but I told you specifically that he was going to win by submission by rear naked choke, did exactly that. And then JoJo Wood perfect punt play. Somebody who shouldn't have been the underdog in the first place, somebody who was grittier, gutted it out, got the win, rode off into the sunset. Nice job, JoJo. And now we can start building some tournament lineups, but I'll show you what the tournament plays looked like from last week. Robellis de Spain obviously was at that premium range. That was no secret there. We even say it right there. Macy Barber, someone who didn't hit that scoring ceiling that we wanted, but I believe she scored around 97 DraftKings points, so still a good showing. Very low ownership as well, like single digit ownership. And then Dustin Poirier, who obviously went out there and did the damn thing like we told you about all week. And then the fight that you wanted 100% exposure to, not ideal. And the reason why I say it's not ideal is because Jailton Almeida went out there and did nothing in the first round except remat and remat and remat and remat. Now, if he went on to continue that, winning the fight, he would have broke the slate entirely. But he gassed and he certainly looked for a way out. Don't think that he didn't. So Curtis Blaydes ended up scoring around 70 something, almost 80 DraftKings points with that second round finish. So not exactly ideal when it comes to a fight that you wanted to target that week. But we did talk about Curtis Blaydes by knockout all week. It comes to fruition. Not the DraftKings score that you like, but if you had Curtis Blaydes at his price and he scored you 77 DraftKings points last week, you're probably pretty happy about it. Now, if you want access to that DFS strategy guide week in, week out, if you want access to the lineup optimizer, the projections model, the data model that just organizes all the pertinent information for the week, the official betting article for the week, which normally I put about 4, 5, maybe 6 bets on there. We have 10 bets on the official betting article this week. People say this card is trash. The card's not trash. Fun fights up and down the card that we want to attack, and also access to the community forum where we hit a parlay last week at around 242 odds, I think. We want to improve that. We hit one PRP, one perfect parlay for the entire card every year since we've started. We did it in 2022. We did it in 2023. We're due one for 2024. And if you're new, just watching, and you don't believe that, let me know in the comments. I'll point you to the videos for reference. All of that can be found on KUNATH'MMA.com. That'll be linked in the description and in a pinned comment. You can just get the lineup optimizer if you just want that, but if you want everything, lineup optimizer and all of the other access, total access is the plan for you. Now let's build some tournament lineups this week. So this will be for your single entries, for your big contests. We want to capture upside. We want to look for plays that are at lower ownership. A couple of the more expensive plays that I think are really interesting this week. I think GM3, because of how he would win, he needs the takedown, he needs the submission. He's going to be way bigger than Bryan Battle this week, which doesn't matter because he's not fighting Bryan Battle. Bryan Barberena is who he's going to be way bigger than this week. Mike Davis has that high motor and can give you access to a high scoring ceiling. You see 134 against Travis Gifford, and don't watch that fight. You've got 90 points against Mason Jones, 123 against Vyacheslav Borshov, and Natan Levy goes down easier than lava cakes. So you can see him getting a lot of takedowns this week. Macy Chiasson is interesting because if she wins, it's going to be just like GM3, just like Mike Davis. It's going to be by submission on the back of her takedowns. 75.66 left over per fighter. Why not? Let's go with Chad and Helliger, 7,700 left over. Let's grab C-Rod at 7,700. Now we have to fight down here. You can grab Danny Silva at 7,400. You left 300 salary on the table. Fine with this. And while I'm fine with that lineup, I do think that it was missing a little something. Missing that main event flavor that you get from somebody like Tai Tuivasa. Tai Tuivasa is going to come in pretty highly owned, but rightfully so. That's good chalk, as we would call it in the biz. Kennedy and Nzechukwu probably goes under owned because he's so pricey this week at 9,400. Let's come here to Bryan Battle, who I think has that finishing upside. 7,900 left over per fighter, so let's just save the salary, go all the way down here to Mitch Ramirez. Now we're at 8,400 left over per fighter, so let's scroll up and see what we got. Corey McKenna might just outwork Jacqueline Amarim this week, and that leaves you with 8,600 left over. You can grab yourself some Isaac Dulgarian. I'm fine with that. I like C-Rod, but this game is not about playing the people that you like. This game is about attacking upside, and the only fight that he's had in the UFC, he scored 122 DraftKings points and broke the slate. So there you go. Don't let your personal bias or who you think is going to win impact the way that you're building these lineups, especially if you're building a lot of lineups. Like, let the lineup optimizer do what it does. Don't discriminate as long as you're setting the proper rules, meaning that two guys who are fighting each other aren't in the same lineup. Now let's go with the other side of the main event in Marcin Tybura at 7,900. Now we can come up here to Mike Davis, 8,200 left over. I'm going to go Josiane Nunes here at 8,400. C-Rod, 7,700. I might come right back to this mid-range and grab Corey McKenna. Now I've got 8,600 left over. Let me grab Bryan Battle. Now, if you want to go really against the grain and just go for as weird a lineup as you can build, Macy Chiasson at 9,000. You come down here, Josiane Nunes, 8,400. $8,200 Corey McKenna. Nobody's going going triple women's MMA because that seems ludicrous. And not Fast and Furious ludicrous, I'm talking afro and bootcut jeans ludicrous. So now you've got here 81.33 left over per fighter. Come down here and grab very low owned Mitch Ramirez, 87.50 left over. This is where you plug in Tuivasa, and now you've got 9,200 left over per fighter to get as weird as you want. Now in this situation, most people are probably going to land in this range. You might see them get one of these three guys here, like Filho, you've got Battle, you've got Dulgarian, but if you wanted to go really against the grain, you just grab yourself another underdog here and leave a bunch on the table. So don't be afraid to get different. Don't be afraid to be unique with your lineups. Don't be afraid to click buttons that you don't feel great about, because those are probably the ones that are burning you week in and week out. A lot of you guys just have the same exact process and don't even realize it. Now, we're all guilty of this if you've played DFS for a while, so I'm not trying to say that you're doing it wrong, but if you're not getting the results over and over again that you're looking for, or even close to it, if you find yourself, like for example, you see at the end of the night where you got the standings, you're looking at your phone and here's the very top and here's the very bottom. If you find yourself like here pretty often, like you're just before cashing, you should build your lineups and take a step back and start retooling things. So here's this guy that I got Josh Culibao in my lineup. Let me swap him for Danny Silva. And that doesn't guarantee success, but here's where you're at. The purpose of cash games is so that you end up in the top 50% so you can double your entry. That's why cash games are so important. Your 50-50s, your head-to-heads, your double-ups, you should be playing cash if you can. But for your tournaments, and I was against this thinking for a while, you do want to make sure that you are either somewhere on the high end, somewhere in that top 10%, or somewhere in that bottom 10%. The reason why it's okay to finish in the bottom 10% of your contest is because at least you were trying to get different enough with your lineup that ended up landing you there. Because if the punches and kicks landed a bit differently, then you would probably find yourself in the top 10%, versus if you finished, say, in the 50th percent, the chances are you're playing a lineup that is chalky. You're rostering very highly owned fighters because you just go with the flow, go with the pack, play the people who you only think are going to win. And if half of your outcomes flipped, that means that your position would probably still be the same, right in that 50% range, just below cashing, or maybe just min cash in your tournaments. So it's not quite Ricky Bobby. It's not quite if you're first, you're last, but you should be playing for first place and not being afraid of ending up in last place is what I'm trying to tell you. That'll make sense for some of you listening to this. For some of you, that won't make sense at all, and you might get mad at the idea that it doesn't make sense. But if it doesn't, listen to it again. And if it still doesn't, leave a comment and I'll further explain. I'll be happy to. So we'll wrap up with Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy, we were so close to hitting times 100 with the slip from last week. We were just a Macy Barber finish away. But the other things that we wanted, like Robelis to Spain, the takedowns in those other two fights, significant strike numbers, we were really dialed in with the projections last week. And I don't have the projections up and finished for you. You're going to be able to see that by the time you're watching this video, I assume. But the projections for takedowns and significant strikes were really on point for the most part last week. So you're going to be able to use those tools to build out these underdog slips, but I'm going to build one with you here. 5 picks. First would be Macy Chiasson over 2.5 takedowns. I expect the fight to go the distance, and I think she's going to get a takedown in every round. So I will project her for more than 2.5 takedowns this week. Gerald Meerschaert, we liked the submission angle. You're not really getting a huge multiplier there, just 1.1 versus 1.0, but there's a reason for that. They put it there because he's going to probably get that submission for you. So I like GM3 right there. Mike Davis over 2.5 takedowns. Give me that all day. Jafel Filho finish at 1.1x. I really like that as well. Danny Silva 50.5 significant strikes. This is money in the bank ladder match. You need to plug that in right now. That will give us a multiplier. Let's see if I could fix this on the screen real quick. Okay, so overall it's a little bit smaller, but you can see down there, if all 5 of these were to hit, it gives you a multiplier of 24.2. So I'm going to go ahead and put 30 on that guy for a payout of 726. Let's confirm that. So again, we're looking for over 2.5 takedowns for Macy Chiasson, looking for a submission from GM3, finish for Filho, 2.5 takedowns, just over that number for Mike Davis, and then over 51 significant strikes basically for Danny Silva. Give me that. If you want to play Underdog Fantasy completely for free for real money, you can just use the money that they give you to play using promo code KUNATH. That's KUNATH. Underdog Fantasy is very similar to Prize Picks. You pick higher or lower on these statistics, just like we did a moment ago, and you're going to be able to do that for not only MMA, but for all the major sports, esports. They've got racing, they've got everything. Wide array of sports that you can choose from. They also have best ball for things like the NFL season. They have the NFL draft thing that you can do, just like you can play on DraftKings. And you're playing against fewer players than you would on something like DraftKings. So lots of opportunities with Underdog Fantasy. I think moving forward, we're going to have a dedicated video for that. We're going to start tracking that so that you can start making money with the props. Because frankly, the lines for the props versus what they look like on Underdog Fantasy, sometimes they don't line up. Sometimes you're getting a lot more value with the pick'em websites, like a Prize Picks, like an Underdog. So take advantage of the first deposit match up to $100. You can hit the link in the description or use promo code KUNATH, KUNATH. When you make your first deposit, they will match that first deposit up to $100. But if you've made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment something for the algorithm, and I wish you the best of luck.